Hey there, honey bunnies. Welcome to episode 121. What if your passion doesn't pay? So, we've all been told for a long time, years, decades, that if you do what you love, the money will follow. If you are living your purpose, then the financial pieces are taken care of. If you follow all the rules, do all the things, stand on your left foot and twirl under the moon at the right minute, then everything will be fine. And that if you're in service to others, everything will be fine. And generally, in service to others, story is given to women. And the expectation is that you serve, regardless of if you're getting paid well or not, and all the things that have women doing all the volunteer work for free and giving away their services for free because they aren't comfortable with making money. Which reminds me, December 1st through 30th, I will be doing a thing for people for money. It's another One Command for Wealth month for those of you who've done it before. You just show up every day and listen, and things do change. But they may not change. It's $47. It's on the website. Y'all know where to find it. Sometimes, though, what happens is money doesn't come, but understanding does. Awareness of how you're tripping yourself up begins to become conscious. And in my opinion, that's better than an extra $100 because it leads you on a different path. So, but what about this concept that if you do everything right and if you're doing what your soul's purpose is, blah, 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 that you'll have money in the bank, that you'll be able to pay the bills and stuff? Well, as we know, that's not always true. Here's why. So many of us out here in the wilderness, as Abraham Hicks says, on the leading edge or the bleeding edge, are doing things that aren't well understood. The people we work with know they experience a profound change, but they can't articulate it, and we can't articulate it either, because it's stuff coming through in the moment, fresh as a daisy or newborn baby or whatever. We can't find words for something that's showing up that's ineffable, that's indescribable, that has come from the realm of oneness and wordlessness and body wisdom, which shows up in symbols. What? If you heard that, that's my cat Tonka sitting in the bathtub, yelling for no reason that I can see. He's doing his own little thing. He's living his own little purpose, yelling periodically from the bathtub. So, the misconception is that if you are doing your work, you are showing up, you are doing, you're producing content, you're getting it out there, but the money is still a struggle, or you make money, but it's not enough to cover all the material expenses, which are skyrocketing, that there's something wrong with you, that you're not doing it right, that your work isn't as worthwhile as you thought it was, that there's some sort of connection between your work being out there and available and your bank account. And what is coming through very strongly for me and has been for months is it's not connected. The money in your bank account is not a effective or accurate outcomes measurement of your work. It's not a measurement of success. The measurement of success is the people benefiting from your work at whatever price point you can handle and they can afford. Your financial success has nothing to do with your soul purpose. When I'm channeling Be in the Gang, they are so often showing me that soul groups get together like a meeting in a conference room, and everybody talks about what they're going to do. Not everybody in the group is incarnated at the same time. Your discarnate soul group helps you from the other side. And that soul group doesn't care about paying the mortgage, because most often it's gathering experiences. There are a few fixed points, if we want to call it destiny or fate. There are a few, very few fixed points on a life path. Let's say you're walking your life path and it doesn't really matter if you turn left or right. It really doesn't. If you turn left, you have experience A. If you turn right, you have experience B. And it doesn't matter. From our perspective, we could say experience A was pretty fucking cool. Experience B blew. I hated it. It was horrible. But that's our human interpretation. Your soul's like, hey, I just gathered experience A and experience B, and I get to add that to the soul group's repository of experiential knowledge. So filing bankruptcy is not a thing from a soul perspective. It's another experience. The rare times that there's a fixed point on a chart, that fixed point can still be circumvented if you exert enough of your will, but it's not recommended. It sort of throws everything into chaos. And also, you'll just do that fixed point in another time, in another dimension, in another body. However that works out. I gotta get rid of these cats. Get out! One of my cats taught Tonka, the naughtiest cat in the world, how to open cabinets. So it's been quite a ruckus, speaking of chaos, now that he's going through the entire house, opening all the cabinets, crawling in and dragging stuff out. Yes, that's fun. There's an experience. So, your life works better if you notice there's a situation that you cannot change and you just accept it and roll with it. You can force your way through it, but it's not recommended. It's not effective, and it has unintended consequences. So, okay. So back to the money thing, though. For so many of us, I know that I've struggled with it, and I know so many of you have too, with this confusion over, but I'm doing the thing. I am doing the thing that comes most naturally to me. I am doing the thing that changes people's lives. I am showing up and making the content. I doing la 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 la. And I'm broke. What the fuck? So that was my question, like how, and it was a repetitive question, like why I think I'm supposed to be doing all this stuff. It is what comes easiest to me. It is what makes me feel the most alive and on purpose. And yet it doesn't consistently pay all the bills, and it doesn't consistently, help me build a retirement account. So when I was asking that, the message I got is it's your passion doesn't always pay. It's not connected. You expressing your natural talents, your soul's ease, the thing that comes through you, that's so easy that for a lot of people in the beginning, they don't recognize that it even is a marketable skill because it's so second nature. And it's not to say don't market your skill or don't accept money, that it's all should be just spiritually handed over. But that's the flip-flop we get into over this material reality requires material income to have a place to live, to have a computer, to have the technology or an office or whatever it is you need to funnel your gifts into the world. And also, if you were so poor that you were homeless and you had none of that, you could still funnel your gifts into the world by opening your mouth or being a street artist or wearing a sandwich board of wisdom and walking up and down the street. Nothing will stop your gifts and talents flowing into the world one way or the other if you want them to. It's great to have access to technology. I need to replace my computer. It's turning into a big deal. And it had me ask that question like, well, do I really need it? Like, what would I do? What would you do if Facebook went down forever? What would you do if overnight the internet disappeared? What would you do? Panic, number one. And then number two, you'd get on the phone and you'd start networking like in the old days when people actually went to meetings and talked to each other and set up, on the corner at the fair and did crystal gazing or card readings. You'd still do your thing, but it would look really different and there would be some disorientation as we are seeing in the world as we're going through the upheaval and disorientation of shifting from the way we've done business to the way we will be doing business. We know that's happening. So the point of this conversation is there seems to be shame attached. Now, I don't experience this, but I've heard it from a number of people lately. There seems to be shame attached to taking a side job for your side job. Like a lot of people work and their natural talents and abilities are their side hustle for a while, and then they took a leap to live off the side hustle and make it the main hustle, and it didn't work. And so now they've got to go pick up a side hustle to support. You know what I mean? Like you got to get a job. And there seems to be some shame attached to that, and it is unnecessary. If you have to get a job to make sure that you have access to a roof over your head and something to live on in emergencies and a way to continue doing your work the best way you can with the technology bits and the internet bill and all of those things, and a vehicle and food and animals, and all those things, there should not be any shame attached to that. That's the truth of this reality, that sometimes you have to have cash. You have to have actual paycheck dollars to keep the ship afloat. That has no meaning to it unless you give it meaning. If you want to tell yourself a story of, oh, I'm a failure because my stuff doesn't pay the bills and I'm not a six-figure coach yet, or yada yada, you can tell yourself that if you want to, but you don't have to. You don't have to. When you're producing the magical things that I know that all of you and myself produce, we are producing things that people aren't familiar enough with that they just buy them off the shelf. When Leonard Skinner, geez, so off base. When Led Zeppelin first performed Stairway to Heaven, the audience hated it. The crowd hated that song. They hated it so much. And they had to play that song over and over and over until people were like, oh, this was kind of interesting. Oh, I kind of like this song. Oh my God, now the song is like a cult favorite and it will be in our musical lexicon forever. Stairway to Heaven, who doesn't know that? By the way, Dolly Parton's version is awesome sauce. So it may not be that your work is somehow flawed or that you are somehow defective. It may be that your work is so new, people don't see it, hear it, accept it, register it enough to easily purchase it. A lot of your work, people don't even know they need you. I've been saying this for a very long time. Your work being created today, the person who's going to benefit from that work may not yet have gone through the life situation that then your work is going to help them learn from, heal from, progress from, create from. Like they haven't experienced the problem yet that you're producing a solution for. If you have the 4323 channel or one of those gates in human design, I know for sure you're producing stuff that people aren't aware yet that they need. They're not truly available for it yet because you're ahead of the game. If you're a 5, you're doing the same thing. You're ahead of the game. You're producing stuff for people that they don't know they need yet. They don't know they need it yet, or they haven't yet gone through the thing that your stuff is going to help them with. There's a time delay. This happens, if you think about it, this happens, as I have been, maybe overthinking about it, this happens to artists all the time. I spent 2.5, almost 3 hours at the Musée Lingerie, well, totally just messed that up. The place where Monet's paintings are in Paris. That one museum that has the big ones. Pardonnez-moi. The museum has 8 of Monet's paintings, and they're huge, and they're in 2 large rooms, 4 each. And people just sit in the middle of the room and stare at the paintings because they come to life when you stare at them. If you've ever spent time with an impressionist painting, one of the impressionists, if you don't sit there and stare at it, or stand there and stare at it for a good 5 or 10, even longer minutes, it won't come to life and you'll think, it's okay, it's pretty. But if you stare at it, if you absorb it, if you meditate with it, it starts to come to life in a way that I can't explain. The water lilies paintings begin to shimmer like you are. It's like they come off the canvas, and it is like you're staring at moving water with reflections of willows in it. It's fascinating, but people hated the Impressionists' work. They hated it. So many people bought Monet's paintings only to have to sell them a few years later at a huge loss. One was bought for $800, sold for $200 a few years later. Some didn't sell at all. He didn't experience financial success till way later in life. Van Gogh didn't experience financial success at all. And now look at how we think about their paintings. They're incredible. We can't imagine a world, I can't imagine a world without them. New things are rejected. This is a tried and true principle. When you're delivering something that is so new, so ahead of the game, so, can't think of the word. I was actually heading for bed, and this podcast is like, make me now. And I was like, oh my God, really? I was headed for bed. Progressive, whatever. You know what I'm getting at. You're ahead of the curve. You're bringing stuff to the world that's never been seen before. Now, we know there's nothing new under the sun, but you're bringing stuff through with ancient principles or words or concepts that are out there, but they're not out there in your voice. They're not out there with your energy permeating them. There's really not a spiritual book that you can pick up that isn't something that you've read before. But sometimes you read 3 or 4 different themed books, and then all of a sudden one of them will click and all the pieces fall into place. And that's usually like with, the 4th or 5th or whatever book you're reading on the same theme. So does that mean the previous 4 books were bullshit and you wasted your money? No. It means that the previous books were chipping away at your wall of ignorance, and then the last book was the wall fell down. And then you got it. And then you had that Satori moment where you're like, oh my God, I see how it all fits together now. It's brilliant. And then usually you forget and pick up the damn book again a decade later and you're like, why didn't I get this 10 years ago? Information is weird and we have weird brains. It doesn't get in there right away. So you might have to have a side hustle for your side hustle. You might have to do some work that is familiar to people. I'm looking at bookkeeping and web design just to fill in the gaps, because it finally sunk in on me after all the work I've done, which does include the one command for wealth. It finally got through my thick skull that the 2 data points are not, they're correlated, but they're not causative. They're not causated. They're not causation. Correlation doesn't mean causation. A low bank account doesn't mean that the work is no good. A struggle with money doesn't mean that your work is shit. Having difficulty explaining what it is, people are always like, talk about the transformation. And you're like, well, that's fucking awesome. What the hell is the transformation? We don't have the words for it. They don't have the words for it. I don't have the words for it. I hate it when someone says, use your client's language. And my client's language is, I don't know why I signed up for this course and I can't explain what happened, but I'm different. And I was like, I'm there with you. I don't know why the course got created. I don't know what we did in the course, but you're different and I'm different. So here we go. We don't have any words that we can spin and make a good marketing pitch. What the hell are we doing out here? I don't want you. I'm going to put on my Granny Wolf hat for a minute. Honey bunnies, I don't want y'all to feel shame if you have to go get a job. There should not be any shame attached to that. You gotta eat. Cats gotta go to the vet. Kids have to go to college. Shit's gotta get done. And if you have to go back to work that you used to do, go back to it. Get the money, refill your tanks. Maybe you could do it part-time. Maybe there's a different way you can do what you used to do. If you used to sell cars, maybe you go back to it, but you bring a completely different attitude to it, or you don't do it in the same way that you used to. There's options. There's options available to work with the tangible rules of this reality while you're playing in the realms of magic. There are things you can do that help. And yes, finding out your limiting beliefs are part of them. If you have judgment about billionaires, start there, because start there. When you see a rich person driving a fancy car and whatever triggers you, and that triggers you, start there. Do your money work. Do look at where you may be blocking yourself. But if you've been putting your work out there for years, I can almost guarantee you that you're a Monet. You're a Van Gogh. You are a stairway to heaven that people don't know they need yet. You are that cutting edge brilliant conduit for wonderful, magical, and practical techniques and skills and programs. And because you're not willing to be the kind of person who friends you on Facebook and then pitch slaps you 30 seconds later, because you're not willing to do that or hire a VA to do that. Most of the times when you're getting those, that's a VA. Don't yell at them. They can't help it. They're trying to make a living too. And the coach that hired them is like, send out 150 of these a day. Because you're not willing to be that. Because you're not willing to compromise your values, because you're not willing to mass market your thing so that it, and push it and push it and twist it and distort it so that it does become a 6 or 7 figure business, you might have to take a job. You might need to do something to care for the anxiety that comes when you don't have enough resources and you don't see them coming in through your work. So your passion may not pay. You may follow what you love and the money will not follow from that source. You may have to let your money follow from your old programming job or going back to selling cars or whatever you used to do. But don't think that, oh my God, I'm going to go back and I'm going to lose all my magic and I'm going to not be able to do this or that or whatever. No, explore the options. Ask to be shown. So I'll throw a little one command at you. It's a little more complicated than this, but the basic statement is, I don't know how I blah, blah, blah. I don't know how I do the work that I know brings in money in a way that supports me also doing my soul work. I only know that I do now and I am fulfilled. I don't know how I manage to balance 3D reality with 5D reality. I only know that I do now and I am fulfilled. I don't know how money comes to me from a lot of different sources with ease and grace. I only know that it does now and I am fulfilled. I don't know how I let go of worrying and start to be inspired to new kinds of solutions around finances. I only know that I do now and I am fulfilled. I don't know how I see, feel, and receive money from all directions. I only know that I do now and I am fulfilled. So just keep playing with that. I don't know how I bring in I don't know, let's see. I don't know how I do my old work that people will easily buy with a new attitude, with a new energy, with a different perspective. I only know that I do now and I am fulfilled. Imagine if instead of going back to a job that you left when you were burnt out, you went back differently and you started blessing everybody you worked with and you started sending them that new energy that you give your clients and you started going to work and holding space for the office, the building, the team, whatever. What if you started holding space for your bookkeeping job or your web design or your corporate thing that used to keep the bills paid? What if you held space for that now that you've been away from it and you have developed your ability to channel, your ability to hold space for your clients? What if you brought that creativity back full circle? It's not a death sentence. If you have to go back to a job you used to do, ask to be shown all the different ways you could be in that job. Ask to be shown how to find the balance to keep doing what you're doing and also pay the mortgage. Ask, how do you break this idea that your effort has to result in money or it's no good? Ask to be shown that. You do a change me prayer from Tosha Silver. Change me into a woman who understands that money and her work are not related to each other. Change me into a person who offers the work to the world and lets money come from wherever it comes from. That's not to say that you work for free, because if you've ever worked with me, you know I'll tell you, don't you work for free. You don't work for free. If you're a projector, you do not work for free. I don't care if you charge people $5, but you get something. You have to be able to feed yourself. And giving your work away because you're mad at billionaires doesn't do any good. It's like saying, stuff extra food in your stomach, children are starving in China. Well, unless you can pack up your leftovers and send it to some kid in China, you might as well just go ahead and throw it in the trash instead of overeating. Same thing with money. You struggling with money and not charging what's appropriate for your services doesn't get back at the the patriarchy. You can be in the world of money and take care of yourself, and you can make it a sacred thing. You don't have to play the game the way everybody else has played the game. Play it your way, but play it in such a way that you do get provided for while you're waiting for the world to catch up, if it catches up. Let go of the idea that what you do that thrills you and lights you up will ever be a consistent source of income. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. But you letting go of that expectation will set you free, and then whatever happens, happens. Maybe it suddenly takes off, maybe it never takes off. You have to let go of that expectation that if I do this, then that will happen. If I'm doing this, then my bank account will be full. If I'm doing this, then I'll make that 6-figure or 7-figure benchmark this year, whatever. So, of course, this is too simplistic and reductionistic, but start to play with the concept for yourself. Start to unravel these pieces that have you going further and further into debt, trying to stay afloat, expecting that your coaching business or your psychic readings or your mediumship business has to pay the bills, and if it doesn't, the world is coming to an end. Start to break that apart. It's damaging. If you're having to take on more debt to keep like one more year afloat in your business, you need to get a side job that's going to support you so that you aren't racking up debt for some future happiness, for some future literal and figurative payoff that's somewhere around the corner. That's magical thinking. And it's destructive as hell. Find something else to do and find some other way to think of this while you're doing your work. And let go of any idea that there should be shame attached to having to balance two avenues for work, for income, for the cashola, that sweet moolah that you have to have. And watch out for if you're digging your heels in and determined that, by God, this business is going to pay for itself and I'm just going to keep ramming my head against that brick wall until finally it pays for itself. That's very patriarchal, linear, excessive, aggressive type of thing to be doing to yourself. And it doesn't work, by the way. You may be able to bust through and increase your income, but you won't be able to sustain it. And the people who you're serving now will lose track of you because your energy will have shifted. I'm watching that happen. We've seen it happen, right? I'll pick on Marie Forleo, who used to be very accessible energetically, and now it's like, where'd she go? I haven't followed any of her stuff in years. When people go way, way big, the energy stream shifts and they're somewhere else. That's not to say that it's wrong, but is that what you want? I'm watching an organization I'm really close to going down that slippery slope. I can see it. It's not, I'm not happy about it. But there's nothing I can do about that either, because it isn't right or wrong. But take a look at what you're chasing and take a look at what it's costing you. And catch your magical thinking if there is any. Just face the reality that there are some things that have to be done. And we can do both. We can play in the old world while we're birthing the new one actively on a daily basis. That is what we're doing. But just don't expect that people are going to recognize it right away and that they're going to be willing to properly exchange for your services right away. Let go of any idea that you have to have a big giant audience and a big giant sales funnel and all those things. Those are sparkly things that we've been sold, and maybe they're appropriate and maybe they're not. Okay, I'm going to stop there. If you do want to keep picking at your money stuff, we start December 1st. It's on my website, thatmichellewolf.com. Right up at the top, it says 10 minutes to more money. It's the one command for wealth. And if it matters to you, I do have a certification in teaching it. And it does work. Just don't come in expecting that it's going to make you cash money, but it will show you what the problem is with you making cash money. But some people do get cash money. When I do it consistently, I do have actual ka-ching money breakthroughs or increases. So, and it's $47. And all you have to do is install the Voxer app and go sign up, and then send me an email and let me know what your Voxer user ID is. Not your display name, but your user ID. All right, anyway, if you want to play in that, get on it. And I will talk to you later. And in the meantime, think less, feel more.